Okay, for the next assignment in my 10-year plan for chapter 11, you're going to skip down to job applications that has a little 10-year symbol. All this wants you to do is put some of the information from your job application on here. This is standard information that you would need to help you to fill out any application for any job. So go ahead and fill it out. Previous addresses, you can just put the address that you're in right now. Health problems or illnesses. This only wants you to put down something that may affect a job. So for example, like if me personally, I have bad knees and a bad back. So let's say that I was applying for a job that was heavy labor, like construction. I would have to tell them ahead of time that I had bad knees and a bad back, because that's going to take into consideration whether I am able to perform the job or not. Okay, so you don't need to tell me if it's not going to be related. Like if you have headaches, if you have asthma, if you have stuff like that, only put it if you know it's going to be brought up during an interview. Now, most of the time, health problems aren't, unless it's something major that's going to affect your job. So most of you should just leave this blank. If you have something major and you're questioning whether you should put it down, just ask me. Okay, dates of your last physical or vaccinations, leave that blank. You don't need to put it. In fact, I'm putting NA so you remember. Okay, and then up here, if you're not going to put anything, put NA. Do you have the legal right to work in the United States? So in other words, do you have a DACA, or were you born here? So you have a social security card. Do you have a work visa? Yes or no? Everyone just click yes. How will you get to and from work? So this is a legitimate question. Let's say you're going to start working next year, the year after, when you're 15 or 16. Like, how are you going to get to work? Are you going to ride my bike every day? That's one option. Are you going to borrow my parents' vehicle? What is your option? Are you going to walk to work? Are you going to have your own car? Are you going to borrow somebody's car? Is somebody going to drop you off? Because that's also an option. You're going to just type that out real quick. Just think about what might be happening when you work a couple of years from now. And if you're carpooling, you can put carpooling too. That means like you're going with multiple people to the same job location. When are you available to work? This is asking you the shifts. So when you go back to your job application, the one that asks you like with the little boxes that said like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you put some hours in there, that's what it's asking right here. So you would do like Monday, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Tuesday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., like that. That's how you're going to type it in there, okay? How many hours a week do you want to work? Everybody is going to put down 20. What salary do you expect? Okay, now this is a personal preference and what type of money you want to make. Now, don't go and put something ridiculous. Like if you're applying at McDonald's, they're not going to pay you above minimum wage. So just be aware of that. If you're wanting to work somewhere else, like retail, like work at the mall or work in a store, like guys, you're going to start at minimum wage. If you get a job at a grocery store, not Walmart, I'm talking like Bonds, Albertsons, they might pay you a little bit higher than minimum wage, but you need to be realistic. Like you can't walk into McDonald's and be like, I want you to pay me $1,000 a week. It ain't going to happen. So you need to be realistic. So what salary do you expect? Most to all of you are going to put minimum wage. So whatever the minimum wage happens to be at the time that you start working, because it's probably going to go up in the next couple of years. In fact, it probably will. Have you served in the military? Everybody's going to put no. Remember, you have to be at least 18 to do that. You have not served. Have you ever been convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony? If you don't know what a misdemeanor is, a crime that is not as serious as a felony. If you have no idea what these two words are, just hit no. Most of you are no's. In fact, I wager all of you are no's. And then you'll click finished, next, and you're done with that section. The final section that you are going to fill out is the job interview. Now, this is important because this is part of your final project. What you need to do is go through, think about these questions, and type out good, medium-sized answers. Okay, so this is the process. You fill out an application, you turn in your resume. Then somebody calls you and says, hey, Joanna, I would like for you to come in to interview for this position. Are you available? Blah, blah, blah. And then you tell them yes or no, or, you work out a time and a day. Okay, so when you come into an interview, they're going to ask you a bunch of questions because they want to get a feel for like your personality, your work ethic, what kind of person you are. Are you good for their company? Are you going to click with the people that you're going to work with? Are you good with people skills if you're going to be customer service? So they're feeling you out. They want to know more about you, and depending on the way that you answer the questions could bomb your interview or it could boost you above the other applicants. Because remember, you're competing against other people to get this job. So when you have an interview, it's really your last chance to say, hey, you should hire me instead because, right? And if you don't know that, well, I'm telling you now because I've been on several, lots and lots of interviews. Okay. So these are common interview questions. These are basic questions that most of you are probably going to hear. You might not hear all of them. You might hear some of them. You might hear different ones. The point is, if you have these filled out and you're thinking about them, then you're ready for those questions when you're in the interview. And it'll make it go a lot smoother. Because if you just like sit there and they're like, well, what do you think would be good? Why do you think you would be good at this job? And then you just sit there with a blank face for like 2 minutes trying to think of an answer. It's not going to look good. So if you rehearse this ahead of time, you already have some idea of what you want to say before the interview. It will help you because then you can spit out an answer and elaborate if they want you to. So they'll be like, oh, why do you think that? Or they'll pick on something that you said specifically, and then you guys will talk about that. So it is important to be prepared and to have these questions done ahead of time. This is part of your final project. You have to have this done before next week. So you're going to go through and you're going to answer all these questions that are listed here in complete sentences, and it should have multiple sentences each one. It shouldn't just be one sentence. Okay, you need to be able to elaborate and expand and explain your answers because that is what's going to happen in an interview. If you go in and you just give them a 1-word, 2-word answer or one sentence, it's not going to go good. You're probably not going to get hired. You need to be able to explain and elaborate what you mean and what you're saying. So this is good practice for you to do that. So you're going to go through and you're going to answer all these questions. Some of these you can pull off of the application that you did. Like, for example, when would you be able to start work? That was one of the questions on the job application. You can put the same date. How many hours a week can you work? You're going to put, I can work 20 hours a week with a work permit from my school. I already did one for you because that's standard for all of you. How would you get to and from work? Remember, we just answered that question back here. They want to know if you're going to be reliable, if you're going to show up on time, if you're going to call and be like, hey, my car broke down, or hey, I can't make it because my ride didn't fall through. Like, if you're going to be doing stuff like that, they don't want to hire you. So you need to be able to tell them a good, reliable source of your transportation. Like, I'm going to walk all the time. Maybe your job is like right around the corner or within walking distance. Maybe you're going to have your own car. Maybe you're going to carpool with somebody. Maybe your parents are going to drop you off. Maybe you're going to ride your bike. Whatever it might be, you need to be able to explain that because then there's also other questions they might ask you like, well, what happens if you get a flat tire? Well, what happens if your ride falls through? So what happens if the weather's bad and you can't walk/ride your bike? So like they want to know why they should depend on you and why they should believe that you're reliable. So you need to go through and explain that. The salary, again, you can say a little bit of above minimum wage, but don't go ham. Don't go crazy. It's not going to work for you. They'll just laugh at you and then you're not going to get hired. So just say, I am comfortable with starting at minimum wage because anyways, we're pretending like this is going to be your first job, your first official job. Okay. And then at the bottom is your opportunity to ask them questions. Now, this is vital and important. You should not leave an interview without asking a question about the company or the job. It is always best to kind of research the company before you go into an interview, just to kind of learn a little bit about who they are, how they started, what they're about, what their slogans are, what they sell, what services they have, whatever the type of business it is that you're applying for. It's always good to kind of do a little research because A, it makes you look good, like you're really interested in the job, and B, it makes you seem more valuable because you already know something about the company. So it makes you look good. So at the end, they always ask, is there anything you would like to ask me about this job or about this company? You should have at least one question prepared to ask. At least one question. The more questions you have, the better it looks, but they need to be quality questions. They should not just be like, oh, am I hired? Like that's no, that's not good. And they're probably not going to hire you. And then like how much, just ask good questions. Now, if you're stuck on this part, then you need to just Google it. I'm not going to give you guys the answers to this section. Just Google what are good questions to ask during an interview and see what pops up. And then just pick the ones that you would be most interested in. So you're going to go through, you're going to have this filled out. Really think about your answers. Don't just go through and get it done just to get it done. You have until next week to finish this. Really think about your answers and how you would do in an interview, because you will be doing an interview next week for your final. So the more you practice, the more you think about it, the more prepared you are, the easier it will be for you to complete this project, your final project. If you have any questions or you get stuck or you don't understand one of these things, you have a couple options. Google it, ask your parents or your guardians or anybody who has a job, like maybe older brother and sister. You can ask me, you can ask other teachers, you can ask your coaches. You have lots of adults around you who would be able to help you with this. Okay. Once you are finished, you're going to click finished, and then you are done with chapter 11. That's all that we are doing in chapter 11, just those 3 10s.